Hello and welcome to lesson 2 of 6. In this lesson, we are going to talk about transactions in MySQL. My name is Mildred. In the last lesson, we looked at different table operations. In this lesson, we are going to repeat the same thing, but this time we are going to use transactions to ensure data consistency. I'm using ACID properties. Now, by default, we have something we call auto commit that is set to true. So every time we run a query, it commits by default. The changes are saved in the database. If we want to see if auto commit is set to on by default, we can do select auto commit like this, and then it will tell us on is 1, 0 is off. So when we see 1, it means it is. So we want to set auto commit before we start a transaction. So we'll say set auto commit is equal to off or equal to 0. Alright, and now we want to use access control. So now that auto commit is off, we can now start doing transactions. To start a transaction, you use a start transaction statement like this. So start transaction. When you start transaction, changes will be temporary until you commit the transaction at the end. So let's try to insert into user permissions. So say insert into user permissions, user ID, permission ID, and then the values. The values we have here is we have 2 and 2. So let's say we want to insert what we deleted at the end of the last lesson. We want to insert write permission to Bob. So we want to insert into user permission that, but we have deleted the user Bob here. But let us first of all insert Bob back into this for us to do that. So let's say insert into users. We want to insert into users. We insert the username, email, values. We want to put Bob, and the email is bob@example.com. Right? So we insert into users the username, the email. Now we will run this first, and let's see, select all from users. So we have Bob has an ID of 3 because we deleted 2. So the ID of Bob is now 3. So now that we know Bob's ID is 3, we want to use that ID 3. So we're inserting here the user ID 3, and we want to have that permission 2. Okay, so we have this one. So this will give us the right permission to Bob. Let's write it like this in the comments. We want to insert into, so we're putting everything together here. Insert into user permission, and we're going to insert user ID, permission ID, and we'll be inserting the values. We want to give the delete permission to Bob. So 3 is for Bob, and the delete permission is 3. So let's say Bob can delete like that. And then we want to have, let me put this here, and this is a comment. And now we want to run this, and we'll see that this data is not permanent because other sessions will not see it. So if I put select all from user permissions, when I run this, you will see that we have Bob here. This is for this session. When I start a new session and I put use access control, and I want to select all from user permission, we only have those 2 because now that change was not permanent because it started from another session, right? So what do you do when we have that? So now let's start again, and let's say we set auto commit to be off. So we'll say set auto commit equal to, we use access control. When we want this to be committed, we now put submit. So if all is well, everything is going to be persisted, and when you change your session, you should see this. So commit must be there. If you use rollback, then it is not going to put it in the system. Okay, so if you have like an error, maybe you want to insert a user ID that does not exist, then it's rollback. Changes are not applied, database remains consistent. Okay, so you can use rollback with error handling. So anytime you use transaction with error handling, when there's an error is when you roll back. Right, whenever you have invalid permission is when you roll back. So you prevent, for financial accounting, you prevent partial wires or critical financial or security system issues or errors. All right, so this is what you do when we do conditional statements in MySQL. You will use that to do the rollback. So when you use conditional statement, you commit if it all goes true and roll back if it doesn't go true. So you want to always use transaction for multiple table inserts, for access control updates, for critical permission changes, and for you want to avoid any blind update or delete statements. You want to auto commit in production rights. Okay, so we can look at role-based access control where we can see what actions a user can perform based on their role. I have this in your lesson resource. It's just an extra resource that will benefit you to know what MySQL or the detail you can go when you complete a relational role-based access schema. And so when we assign permissions to role, you can now define the role-based access control, and you have permissions per role where you can have admin will have full access to read, write, delete, where you can have editor will have read plus write, and then viewer will have read only. So we have those role-based access control. I want you to go through your lesson resource where we have that role-based access control and look at the different simulations and the code that are used here to work on role-based access control. We are going to look at that when we look at the conditional statements, and we're going to see how we can use transactions in conditional statements. Now we have another kind of table operation that we do when we want to modify a column definition, and we use the alter statement. So let's say if we want to change the name of a particular column. Now let's say we want to change username to be name, use access control. So we want to change the username in the users table to be instead of username, we want it to be name, just name. So we use a statement we call alter like this. So we have alter. So we use this alter statement to modify definition. So we can say alter if it's table, we want to alter table, and then you specify the table name, alter table, the name of the table. So let's say alter table users. You want to modify, let's say modify the name of the column, so column name. So we want to modify username, and then you put the column definition, all right, that you want. So we are changing the column requirement. So we are changing the username. If you want to change or add new column name, let's say alter table, the name of the table, you want to add new column, so you can do add new column here, add new column. So you write add and then the new column name there after the column name you want to add, and then you can also update the name of the column. All right, so when we want to change the column name, we'll do alter table users, then we'll use change the name of the column. So we want to change alter table name, change column, and the name of the column we want to change is username, and we want to have the new name to be name, and then we want to have the definition. Let's say this one will be full name, and then we want to have the definition of that. And so the definition here we had before was voucher, so we can say voucher, we want it to be voucher 200, and maybe we want it to be not null, something like that. So when we run this and we come refresh here, we will see that we have full name as the name here, no longer username. So the alter table command does different things: change column name, add new column. Refer to your lesson resource to see the different operations you can do with the alter table command. This is where we end this lesson. Thank you and see you next week.